All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. This is Rob here at Smirking Gun. And I'm doing kind of an impromptu thing. I am about to lose my Apple Plus TV subscription. And wouldn't you know it, that's at the same time around I think I got I might have enough time to catch the third episode. Oh, yeah. May 15th is when the third episode comes out. And that's exactly when my Apple Plus runs out. So before my Apple Plus runs out, I wanted to check out this specific show called Dark Matter. Why? Because I'm been in love with Jennifer Connelly since Labyrinth, and I'll see anything she's in. Basically, I have except I didn't see Top Gun because no, I just no. But I also really wanted to watch this because of Joel Edgerton. I like him a lot too. So it was just like bam, bam. And I looked at the title. I didn't really watch a trailer. I don't really do trailers anymore. It's been a long time. I think anybody who knows the channel, by the way, like and subscribe if you haven't liked and subscribed already. Um, yeah, I don't really do trailers. I haven't done trailers in a long time. Every once in a while, but like whatever. That's just my own thing. Um, So anyway, I went in this pretty cold, except I read the synopsis and went, okay, this is pretty interesting. They just say, the opportunity to live another life. And the images that are on that they have on Apple Plus for the show, where you see a bunch of this guy and one girl, and that should have clued me in right away. What this was going to be. But again, I was kind of just empty in my head. That's one of the reasons why I just don't do trailers too much. I'll read a synopsis. I'll see who's in it. I'll see who directs it, that kind of thing, and I'll decide whether or not I want to see it. And sometimes I'm surprised. Sometimes I'm not. Um, but this had me by the cast. I didn't know that this was based on a novel by an author named Blake Crouch. I've never read any of that person's work. If they have more than one book or anything. Um, so going in completely blind and wanting to give because I'm not going to give spoilers right away. This is mostly like a recommendation video of what do I think, and then I'm going to go over the episodes, just to cover it all and see how it feels by the end of it, and maybe that'll help me decide whether I'm going to continue doing these or not. But like I said, big Jennifer Connelly fan. Like after Labyrinth, and then when she was in the Rocketeer, and then inventing the Abbotts and so on and so on. Like A Beautiful Mind, and uh, what's the one? The one that I tripped on mushrooms watching. What the hell is that one called? Requiem for a Dream. Everything that she's done. Oh my god! And career opportunities. Get out of here. I've made anyway. My Anybody who knows my channel knows that my oh yes, knows all about my Jennifer Connelly problem. But Joel Edgerton has also just been one of those great dramatic actors, and really an interesting vision, what he does as far as because he's a director too, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, and his directing work, especially working with when him and Jason Bateman have worked together, especially on that movie The Gift, where I think both these guys um, have shined. Um, so it was really not a hard sell for me to watch this. But not going in without anything else. Um, Here's my synopsis of the show without spoiling too much, right? You've got Joel Edgerton as this guy named Jason, who's got just kind of an ordinary life with a beautiful wife and a kid who's, going, smart. And he's a professor, and she's does shows for artists. Like she sets up the like I said, art shows. I don't know the freaking art world. So just this pretty regular life. You can tell that there's like, knowing a little bit about this show, you knew there was going to be some kind of sciencey sci-fi element to this. So just where was it going to be from? But and as I'll go into greater detail in a little bit, but like something happens where he's at a party for a friend. He's offered a job. You can tell there's been surveillance on the family, on him especially. Somebody takes him. He wakes up the next day and he's in another world. And it's one of those, or at least, I figured out a lot of this pretty quickly and where it was going and the potential where it is. And that's just me seeing, I've seen so much that I see it all. A lot of this stuff coming. And I don't, if I legitimately can't see something coming, I'll tell you. Because my brain will be constantly working on I don't even know if I can help it. Like where just while I'm watching something, sometimes I'm just completely breaking it down in my head. But this is a well-made, well-acted show that is full of every kind of cliche you could think of. But that's not, I've said before, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And if you're gonna make a show that's full of pretty obvious cliches and pretty as many twists that it can have, it still feels like you know where it's going and where it's headed and how it's all going to play out in the end. There is one curveball, but like with the way that we'll talk about how this world is set up and what we know about like what's possible in this world anyway, it kind of takes away a little bit of the suspense for me. But again, for anybody who hasn't seen like a ton of these kind of shows, I think it's really enjoyable. For me, it's like I said, it's really well acted. It's really well produced, shot, the location. I love it being in Chicago. I always love seeing stuff in Chicago, even though I don't like shows like Chicago Fire and Chicago PD and all that. I don't know what that matters. It just means that I'm picky about my Chicago stuff, I guess. But it just, for the most part, outside of the performances, because I can see why, coming from an actor's standpoint, playing different versions of yourself is great. But to me, it just kind of, I don't know, it was a little bland and by the numbers, but still enjoyable enough. But I don't know if it's enjoyable enough to like keep talking about it. But I did take a bunch of notes. So it's like a recommendation, but don't go in with like thinking that this is going to be like something that changes your like life. I mean, go in with like reasonable expectations about it. Know you're getting good performances. Know that it's going to look great, but know that it's also a story filled with things that you've seen before, if you're my age at least, which is, in my upper 40s. But by the time you, like, most people are like 30, you've seen a ton of this as well. If you're a cinephile anyway. If you're not as big into seeing every kind of movie, this is going to be up your alley because you haven't been drowned by all this kind of content already. But for me, it's just it's a pretty enjoyable, watchable thing. But is it necessarily something I need to keep Apple Plus for right now? No, not really. Not when I can kind of see the plot already, coming a mile away. But for all of you that don't, that's great. And hopefully the rest of what we talk about is more enjoyable as far as like just, breaking down and talking about it. But we will be talking about just kind of like where I caught things, where, there's not too much in here that's like, if you're looking for something that's like not topical really, I mean, anything that's fun and talking about, different universes and different lives that you can lead, that's that's really what this is about, and like what connects us to people, that kind of thing, like the connections that we make and the different choices that we make. It's not a topical show, really. It's at least in the first couple of episodes. If you're looking to kind of tune out from the world, this is a pretty good show for that as well. I liked being able to, in retrospect, watch something that didn't have me thinking about anything but what was going on screen, and not going, yes, this reminds me of that, because I'm not going to complain. I love stuff that's topical or stuff that brings up things with me, but I also would, I like a break, a true break from reality every once in a while. And depending on the quality of it, there's tons of that too out there. But something like this, like, that's kind of up my alley. Like, that reminds me of shows like Fringe and the X-Files a little bit. Um, when it can engage me without having to think about anything else, that's I can give that a high mark. So as far as recommendation goes, like, if you're looking for like a more immersive thing that's gonna really truly take you out of like your day, this will do that. And so let's see. Is there anything else like spoilery that I can talk about? No. So hey, look, 11 minutes in, and that's it for for regular ass non-spoilers. So for those of you who just needed that recommendation, there it is. The rest of this video is gonna be talking about the episode, so that me and my friends that might watch this or whatever can have something to know that I've discussed it with them. So the first episode is called "Are You Happy in Your Life?" Um, like I said, I don't really care as much about the plot of this as much as uh, just kind of seeing where it's going. Again, after the second episode, it really drew me in, because for the most part, like I said, this is Jason and Daniela, played by Joel Edgerton and Jennifer Connelly. Their life is just this kind of regular run of the mill life. Think like Nobody, like Bobo, like, but Bobo, but Joel Edgerton is just a physics professor. I believe it's at physics, or he's into some crazy shit. Okay, because I know his friends like doing neuroscience stuff. In fact, like, let me check something out here really fast. Go to show. Yeah, he's a physics professor. I was right. Yay! Accidentally. I was accidentally right. So everything's pretty by the numbers. Like, mom says you can't drive to school, but I'm going to let you drive to school, that kind of thing. Like, everybody's ha ha ha, and it's just whatever. It's a life. And everybody seems happy, and it doesn't seem like there's too much under the surface as far as like animosity, but it's only episode 1 and 2, so what do I know? All of a sudden in episode 3 a whole bunch of stuff could come flying out of nowhere. But what makes it kind of interesting is that you can tell that he's being surveilled, and that somebody's like following up and keeping a schedule for this guy, which means that's not that's not good in any way, shape, or form. But he gets noticed on the way. He gets a notice from his friend. His friend calls him and says he won this thing called the Pavia Award. It's this huge deal in the scientific world, apparently. And he wants him to, meet up at this bar, enjoy the success, come on down. He makes it by his own house so that he can't has a hard time saying no. And this is where Jennifer Connelly like comes in, because like right now it's just standard. It's just been standard performances, husband, wife, friend. Oh, hey, all the shit you've seen a million times. The friend that calls out of nowhere, and you go, okay, he's kind of like comic relief, yet integral to the plot, because there's not a big cast here. So everybody does have kind of a big role to play, depending on which version we're going to be talking about. So, like I said, but up until this point, the performances have just been kind of whatever. But it's in this scene where she's convincing him to go to the bar to be with his friend. Man, she just turns like, it's just when the scene requires it, like when they're not just doing standard, okay, believable family acting bullshit, whatever. That's That's not bullshit either. I shouldn't call it bullshit. It's like if you can watch somebody just phone it in a scene like where it's just like you don't believe they're a real family. So it's not like there isn't something to that. Like you have to actually try. It's just again, it's you've seen it 1,000 times. But it's when something important to the plot's happening when you see somebody like Jennifer Connelly's caliber really just shine where you just like go, oh my God, if I was his, if she was my wife, I would just be melted. Like I'd be at her feet. Not and take away the fact that I already love her. I mean, I put myself in his place and it was just like, holy shit, she'd be able to talk me into anything and not in one of those like the typical it's just there's something about the tone and the easiness of the words and the matter of factness and the you kind of should already know this and I shouldn't have to tell you this that kind of way, but not making you feel stupid about it. If you know what I'm saying. But when he does go down to the bar and he talks to his friend and they're having expensive drinks, he offers him a job. And I was waiting for the ask. I was waiting for the thing that always comes with this because again, all these scenes are like in other things. So this is the scene where the friend comes that got some success, but also got it kind of off the back of this guy a little bit. And it was in the line that's where they talk about notes. Your notes were essential. So this guy feels obligated. This is that obligated guy who's like, I'm going to try to bring my friend along. But it also, there is the potential cliche here of the, um, is this guy using me because he doesn't really, I was the one who had to get him across the finish line on something. And is he now stuck again? And is he only offering me this job because he still needs me to carry him further because now that he's got the money from this award, does he actually have the knowledge to do anything with it? And if he doesn't, who would he turn to? His friend. And maybe that's really cynical of me and really pessimistic, but that's just where my head went as far as like story possibilities with these two guys. Especially with what happened next. But as the story did progress, uh, one thing became really obvious right away, but the rest was kind of a little. Occasionally, they would dribble in a surprise. Um, I should also note the rest of the cast because there was a scene establishing Jennifer Connelly's character as a somebody who sets up shows for artists. Um, that actress from The Handmaid's Tale, Amanda Brugel, is in this. She was only in like one scene, but her hair, well, she basically didn't have any. So I almost didn't recognize her as one of the actors from like one of the best actors on The Handmaid's Tale is in this. Also, Jimmy Simpson, who plays his best friend Ryan. Jimmy Simpson, man, I've loved that guy since like I think there. I want to say it's around the same time that he started showing up on It's Always Sunny. But whatever he was in back in that time period, man, that's when I started seeing him pop up his little character parts and things, and he always had me. And when he started getting big, like on shows like Westworld, oh my gosh. So anytime that guy's in something too, he was a big draw for me on this show as well. Same with Alice Braga, who's also been in a ton of things that you've seen in the last 15, 20 years. But she's one of those people that really deserves to have that like great big breakout thing. But you know what? What do I maybe, like I'm sure she likes her career just fine. I don't want to get too far off track because all of a sudden we just spend the whole time talking about the cast again. Um But yeah, we were talking about like what happens after. So he leaves the bar after getting offered this job uh, that would require him to leave for San Francisco. And he's like, well, my life is here, yada, yada, yada. On the way home, he's hijacked by this dude in a white mask. And I just, I wrote it right. I wrote it down like, and I'm going to have to take a picture and prove it. Like I even like underlined it like right as soon as he was like hijacked by man in mask. And I wrote, it's himself. He's kidnapping himself. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I just knew it. I don't mean to be like braggy about it. Just, I knew it. So he's kidnapped by himself. I'm just gonna say it because it's what happened, and this is for spoiler people anyway. He makes himself strip. He injects himself with something. He redresses him after he passes out, and he's like, wakes up. He's like, "Are you like?" He's not passed out yet. He does try to fight for a second. He wounds the other version of himself because, like I said, I'm just gonna call it that. The surprise is over. I knew it. It's like, yeah, you can try to like dress up the voice just a little, like like he's not using a voice modulator. He's just trying to. It's like he's trying to do a quiet Batman from Bateman. Like instead of all the way over here, he's kind of all the way over here. Go, you do what I tell you, I'll kill you. That kind of like Bale, like Bale light, like Bale, like yeah. Anyway. Before he falls asleep, he's asking him about like, "Are you happy with your life? I'm doing this for us," and that even solidified with me, man, because then that just makes this like he's into physics. This is into some kind of like Freaky Friday, fucked up Freaky Friday meets Total Recall, meets like Fringe, and I'm like I'm down with all those things. I really am, but it was like. Okay. I guess because it's played more for drama and not like an action. It's more like a personal story, like some big massive thing is happening and they're playing it small scale. And I guess when I look at it like that, I do have to say that I like that so far in this show we have not like exploded out onto the streets with, oh my god, this is happening and the whole world's gonna know and blah blah blah. Like right now this is all like a contained story where the mystery isn't just with our characters. It's like such a small group of people that know about this. It's like knowing something huge could come from this if the worst comes to, like, I don't know, like again would have to know like what the ultimate goal is of the guy who was able to figure out how to travel between universes, who was able to make the box. Because again, they talked about the box in the first scene where he's with as a professor talking about Schrodinger's cat, being in superposition, being alive and dead, decaying and not decaying, like everything. It was all getting set up for us. And again, I love all this kind of stuff, but it just, as I'm talking about it more, I do like that it's small scale, but it still doesn't stop the story from just being kind of a little, again, until all of a sudden you'll have a scene where Jennifer and it is like Jennifer Connelly, even though like I do think that when he first shows up and they bring him in from the hospital and he's at the company that he supposedly started and he has no memories of all this. All he knows is his old life. And these people haven't seen him in like 14 months and 10 days. And, apparently this is some big triumph and that none of the other people have like shown back up, meaning like that he must have sent in like a bunch of other people into that box, like maybe first, or maybe when he went, did 3 other people go? I don't know. But this is where we meet Amanda and Leighton, played by Alice Braga and Dio Ekenliu. And when he freaks out here in the room where it looks like, I did love that they set it up where it felt like he was being interrogated by like federal agents or something, or like corporate security, wink wink, nudge nudge, that kind of thing. And it turns out no, it's just his company, and they were like, surprise. That was pretty funny. That was a pretty cool way of doing it. But his freak out is very believable because it's not over the top. It's more like just really, really discombobulated and feeling like, what would feeling like, what's your reality? Like, are you dreaming or not? Like, what would that really feel like? Would you just have some complete meltdown, or would you more like go into like kind of a fight or flight mode where you're just kind of frozen in fear, like a deer in the headlights, because it's just, nothing makes sense. And he portrays that really, really good. But he escapes. But you have to ask yourself at this point in the story, I know what he's escaping, right? I know where this is headed, but like, in his head, what's he escaping? What is he running from? Like, who are these people and why, like they're chasing him with a, I don't know, with a little bit too much. I don't know. It feels like they're in this part of the story. It's really wanting you to feel like the Total Recall kind of thing. And he goes home. Okay, and this is where it's like they cut to Jennifer Connelly. Okay, and this is another cliched fake out of you think he's coming home, but you know that the guy that's out there, he's getting out of the car, and yep, big fucking surprise. He opens the door, and it's Alice. It's Amanda, played by Alice Braga, standing there in his house. It's all refurbished, and then you cut away to the guy in the mask, who was himself, walking up to his wife and seducing her, and it goes where it goes. And then you have to ask yourself, if you are you, but from another universe, that's still pretty, sexual assaulty, right? She's operating on the information that you are the man she married, even though at a DNA level you are the same, but you are not the same in your brain, right? Different. So that troubled me. But then I was like, when there was a chance at the end, and we'll get to that, we're just kind of like went, oh, so I guess it's just like that, is it? Um, um, but now it's his job basically he's life swapping this guy. Like it's that, except, at least on the Dave Chappelle sketch, it was like, agreed upon. It may not have been a pleasant experience for both people, but it was agreed upon. So it's life swap. And now this guy's got to convince him that he is who he says he is. And I guess I would have mentioned, like, the son. I was surprised that they didn't mention that they had the conversation about the girl that he likes already. And then when they bring it up again, he kind of like acts like he doesn't know. And if you want to say that maybe he's just playing it cool in front of the mom so that she doesn't know that they've already talked about it, maybe, if that's a way of looking at it. Otherwise, I would have said that the kid should have been like, well, Dad, don't you remember we already talked about this? And that could have been that first seed of doubt, like, what? Just so that if something else happens later, they could start pointing out where, a little foreshadowing, because there was some definite foreshadowing in one moment. And I wrote it down where he was going down the stairs, and the top of where did I write it? Yeah, the loose top of the stairs of the stair rail, when it pops off in his hand, and he puts it back, and I went, that's gonna come up somehow. But that's when I was just like, basically, this is a parallel universe crossover show. And that this guy figured out how to cross over. By the end of the first episode, I was just like, yeah, I knew it. Like before that, I mean, I just didn't want to write it down. I was like, and I wrote it down. I'll even show everybody again in my notes that I was like, yeah, this is a parallel universe crossover show. And this guy figured out how to do it. And now but it was going to be like, what kind of show? Because they did want you to have that question of like the total recall package, which was one of these things just completely in his own head. And I kind of wish that is where the show stayed. That's where I think it lost me, was when I realized that we were doing parallel universes for myself again. And that I think that if this would have been a good, quiet, small, like, small scope, total recall type of show where you really don't know what's real. They made too many things like solidified that they'd all have to be in on some elaborate fucking like Michael Douglas is The Game, except probably even more. I think even more in depth. And I shouldn't say Michael Douglas is The Game. David Fincher's The Game that starred Michael Douglas. Um, but yeah, once they solidified that, it kind of made me a little less interested. And I guess it's maybe because I have seen more parallel universe stories than Total Recall type stories, um, or spiritual successors to those kind of things. And again, I want to reiterate to those people out there, I do like this. I'm just being honest about like expectations and things that I see coming. So in the second episode, right, I took a lot of like loose notes here, but one of the things that struck me was when after he's slept with her, the one, the man in the mask version, and he walks in to see the kid Charlie, right? And we know that this is the guy who made the choice to leave her, and that's what this whole thing is. He's talking about the road less traveled, so it's like this one said no to her, and now he's regretting it, and the other one said yes, and his life is more boring. But one of the things I was thinking about that was he seems to have more of a plan than that. And that's another kind of thing that is keeping me somewhat interested, was that I thought that his goal, all right, the original guy's goal was to go in the box. I guess in my head, I thought he was trying to, because he says to his friend, to his other self, this is for us. And I was wondering, is this him trying to basically wake up all, like somehow connect himself to all universes, like so that every version of himself would learn how to make the box, so that endless versions of, like, he could have people bouncing all over, basically creating a multiverse for the entire, you know, well, that number would be infinite. But I don't know. It's like I said, I think I'm trying to go like big scope when, again, this show is small scope. But I feel like, again, this guy's got bigger plans. Because when he looked at his kid, I couldn't tell if he liked him or not. Like he was cool about this. Because we all know he wants Jennifer Connelly. Because who wouldn't? But he's, I don't know. But that's where the loose top of the stairwell comes in, where it comes off. And I feel like that's something that's definite foreshadowing. But we cut back to dude in the hospital now. Our main guy that we're following, the kidnapped version, whatever you want to call it, the Shanghaied into another universe version. And the doctor's listing off all these things. He's listing a life that he didn't live. And it's just got to be maddening. But he's just playing the game. And I guess I got to give him up to the writers on this, because I don't know. I think about how people really are, and you wonder, like, how quickly would a regular ass person that had this happen to them would end up in psych ward and throwing away the key? Or would we be able to, like, we all want to believe that we could play it off like this guy's playing it off. Do you know what I'm saying? And this is where we hear the first, like, after this, we hear the term velocity for the first time. And these people talking about how they lost 4 people already. So actually, does that mean 5, since he's the only one that came back, or that they found? And do they know that that's why how he came back? That he was forced back or force switched? Because those people are still operating that this guy that they're talking to is their guy. Their guy left. So he, like, what do they know about what he wanted? Did he go rogue on his own? And again, he did all this for Jennifer Connelly. And again, on the surface at least, he did it all for Jennifer Connelly. He better have done it all for Jennifer Connelly if the plan is worth. But when he takes over his class, it was something about the way he was talking about saying, pay attention. And I was thinking he's a more engaging professor than this main universe's version of himself. That Jason. So in my head, I started thinking, is there someone in this class that he's trying to reach that's going to do something? But this isn't a time travel thing. This is a parallel universe thing. So is it just literally, is the plot going to just be that this guy he has a bunker. We know this by the end of the episode. He has a bunker with food and shit. So like, what's like? I can't get past like, what's this guy's end game? Because if it's just to just hang there and live this life, what's the full on point of it? But our guy tracks down Daniela. And he meets this universe's Ryan. And it's awkward. And they put a little, I think, like latex on Jimmy Simpson to make this one look a little more like things didn't quite work out for him. So they added a little bit of flesh, I think, to his face. And they hang out, and it's nice. And it's like they know each other. This isn't one of those things like they don't know him, okay? They know him. They just don't know that. And that's where it was solidified that this isn't some Total Recall thing. If they had done that where they're like, who? No, like the art show is inspired by him. He goes in there and sees paintings of himself. And so when they hang out later together and it's just the three of them, and she's the one who's like, and she looks so freaking amazing in that black dress. He tells him everything. And he talks about being, and again, this is like the how to create a parallel universe thing that's been in other shows where you make a choice and you create a new universe. It's how all multiverse stuff works. And I guess maybe it is multiverse fatigue. How is it that we have multiverse? I have multiverse fatigue already, and I haven't really enjoyed any of the multiverse. Ugh. As much as I wanted to, anyway. So, surprise, surprise. His friend thinks they have to go down that route partially where, he's saying things that are messed up, things that didn't. So like, since they're not successful here and he's saying, these are the successes that you have there, and that you have a kid with me and all this, he's saying a bunch of shit that would scare anybody or piss off anybody. And it's kind of like they do that in all these things to make the character like feel isolated, feel even more alone, feel more helpless. But the difference is that Jennifer Connelly doesn't push him away. Daniela's her character Daniela. She doesn't push him away. Meanwhile, dude says no to Ryan about the job. Just like, nope, goodbye. And it's really awkward. It is as awkward as a phone call like that would be, where it just kind of ends. Like the other person's trying to talk still, and it's not like a full hang up. It's more like a pause in the conversation that ends in a click. Which then that's where we find that this mug has a freaking bunker with a gun, with other shit in there. The box, whatever's in that box, it could be the box. This is now, it's like, what's in the box? It's the new tube. It's the box. What's in the box, of this generation? What's in the box? Because, what is in the box? Is it his superposition? What is it? I don't know. I don't know how you would even go about doing that. But Jennifer Connelly's Daniela goes. I keep saying Jennifer Connelly instead of her character name. Oh, my God. Okay, so Daniela and Jason, she goes to his new house to check it out. And this is like, I like that she's his partner in crime. And they end up talking, and you realize it's going to become like how to get back to my life story. How do I, convince my, like if I get there, like what happened? Do I convince them? How do I fight myself to get back there? And at first I thought this was the part in something where they're just keeping the character talking. And then you're going to find out, like, she's rolling around, because I was like, oh God, like they're going to kiss. And I was like, no, not like the other one kissed her and it felt weird. And now don't do that here, because that would be equally weird. But they both do quick kiss and they are start rolling around a little bit. And I was a little disappointed in the character choice there. But I mean, it is Jennifer Connelly again. So what can I say? But and especially when they get interrupted before anything really happens. And I went, oh shit. But this is where the story did twist me up, because it's one of the people that's looking for him. And it's like the people like Leighton and them. And she shoots out the door, puts him at gunpoint, and then blows Daniela. She blows her away. She shoots her right in the head. And she's dead. And I went, oh shit. Because they just had this moment, like real moment, man. Good acting too. And they're taking him away and she's dead. Now, there are ways to get there is the other, the original Daniela from his world. His wife is still alive, but this one's gone. And I don't know how I feel about that, because it's like, oh, because she's not from his universe, it's a little less. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna be like he's gonna feel like he just saw his wife die, but they're not gonna. He can't be carrying that. Yeah, I mean, he probably will be carrying that around with him for the rest of the show. But there are ways for him. Like, what if he can cross over into another world? And how many different worlds are we gonna see? Because we did see a whole lot of him. How many places has he visited before? Does he have an army? What is this? Or is it literally still as small a scope as I hope it kind of stays? Anyway, I talked way more about this than I thought I was going to. I really did. I saw the time and I was like, oh, I'm going to be done with this in a minute. But I'm not. It took 42 minutes and some change to talk about it, and that's fine. We talked about 2 episodes and like what I initially think about it. So if you got to the end of this, congratulations. I owe you a Coke. Outside of that, if I talk more about this, I don't know, keep an eye out on the channel. Otherwise, I am going to be talking about The Terror Infamy, a show from a few years ago. That's the second season of a show called The Terror, which I highly recommend. It's on AMC Plus if you can watch it, or just buy the Blu-ray or the DVD because it's worth it. It's seriously, I think it might even be on Hulu. I don't know. But watch that. Watch me talk about it. Like, subscribe, all that shenanigans. Otherwise, we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.